Beautiful intro to a beautiful tune. This is, of course, the Alan Parsons Project, The Turn of a Friendly Card, from album of the same name in 1980, a tune put together by Eric Woolfson. Very symphonic sound, kind of typical of many of his tunes. And what I'm going to do in this lesson is really put together how I would play it. There are, of course, not really much guitar in it. There is a solo. I might talk about the solo. It's a very short little classical guitar solo that happens in there. Matter of fact, that was pretty close to it. I might have to write that down and add it to the lesson. But if I was going to play this by myself, I wouldn't really have time to put that in there. If I was just going to play it and accompany a singer, which I hope to have a video added to this very soon of exactly that. But the song has a lot of interesting things happening. One verse is kind of different than the next as far as the rhythm goes, and so what we're really just going to do is talk about the chord progression. It's in the key of D minor and uses a lot of normal chords in D minor, some seventh chords, some suspended some 7 sus4 chords, a little bit of unusual rhythm where sometimes we hear this, where the chord is anticipated. A chord change that would normally happen on beat 3 happens an 8th note early. And you heard that right there when we hear this part. Well, I haven't really thought about turning this into an instrumental yet, but that may evolve too. I really just wanted to get down a basic accompaniment version of how you could play this and with a singer. Now, what I would do in some verses, particularly the first verse, is more arpeggio style. We hear some nice little runs. And in the second verse, maybe a little more strumming with the anticipated chord changes. And the third verse is a little bit different. Now the song there's a single version that got played a lot on the radio, but the extended version from the album really had a few other songs sandwiched in between it. There was a cool rockin' tune called Snake Eyes, and what were the other ones? There were like three really cool things that happened in between part 1 and part 2. Oh yeah, there's an instrumental there called The Ace of Swords, and then Nothing Left to Lose. And all this got played a little bit on the radio as independent tracks, but it's more of a suite of pieces that start and end with this, and then it was stitched together for a single release without the other songs in between. Anyway, so we're going to look at really just everything that happens in the single version up until it ends with, again, kind of symphonic solos. With an electric guitar solo and then kind of an orchestral swelling kind of stuff. Anyway, okay, enough chit-chat. Let's get into the lesson on the turn of a friendly card. Well, we mostly have chords from the key of D minor. So we're going to see D minor. So I tend to like to play my D minor with my little finger on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string on the D there, rather than my 3rd. This just feels like a much more comfortable position. It also helps sometimes with passing bass notes. D minor will frequently go to a C chord or something like that. So I recommend that. Now, we can also play all of the chords as bars, and that'll help make one of the changes particularly easier, but we'll come back to that in just a second. So in D minor, the first key, chord number 1 in the minor key would be D minor. Chord 2 is not going to happen. It's an E minor 7 flat 5. Chord 3 is not going to happen, which would be F. Chord 4 does happen. We need G minor, and it's really going to be a G minor 7 when it happens. And so you play that with a full bar here and really just one note on the 5th fret of the 5th string. And whenever that comes up, we're usually going to have a little bit of an arpeggio and just let it ring out, because that's the chord that kicks into the kind of the refrain of the friendly card line. So G minor 7, we're going to see a few different members of the A family. We're going to see a regular A minor. We're going to see A minor 7. Sometimes I might even want to have an A minor 7 with D in the bass, but that's in a solo accompaniment version, not as much. And we're going to see A7, hopefully you're familiar with those two chords, A minor, and then open up the third string to make it minor 7. But changing the C to a D on the second string gives us A7 sus 4. Okay, the intro, the little piano intro that we hear here that I played back in the preview, that is how I would approximate this on the guitar. And that makes this probably the hardest part of the song. As I get through this, I'll think about ways of simplifying it a little bit. But what we hear here that makes it different from everything else is this melody. That's the melody we hear, and then we hear this bass line, and it's kind of following our chord progression with one major difference. We hear the D in the bass, do 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 do, and C sharp in the bass. So the second chord this time is an A7 with C sharp in the bass. So what I'm doing is playing an A7 chord here with a bar covering the second, third, and fourth strings, the G on top, and the C, getting the C sharp on the third, fourth fret of the A string. This is going to be a hard chord to grab, but we have the advantage here of the chord coming first and then the bass coming in. So the D minor chord that I'm playing here is a little 3-string version up at the 5th fret. It's a reduction of the D minor out of the A family. And the best way to do, we need to start with a quick hammer-on. And so I'd already have the chord down to do that. I wouldn't try to do this and grab the chord after you've done that. So plant the chord, hit the second string and hammer it on with your ring finger here on your right hand, sorry, your middle finger, and then hammer on your little finger, and then grab those 3 notes. And now we have this kind of modified arpeggio where we're hitting 2 notes at the top, coming down to the 3rd string, and then we need to grab the top 3 notes of the A7. And actually, the way I have it, you don't really need this bar to be across the 4th string because we're not going to hit that string. So you could get away with just a 3-string bar here, which you might find it easier to go a shorter bar here. And then we need the C sharp in the bass. And this is the same kind of anticipation where the chord change happens on the and. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and now we need the barred B flat. Now what I do to make this a little easier is I'm just trying to grab the bar and my second finger, because all I need is these 2 strings before I hit the bass note. Then I can bring in the other bass note.